Pravrajantamanupetakrityam dvaipayano virahakatara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravobinedur tam sarvabhutaridayam munimanatosmi. Welcome back to the Bhagavata podcast, the podcast where devotion meets scholarship and where scholar practitioners discuss chapters of the Srimad Bhagavata, or the beautiful Bhagavata Purana. We have reached chapter 14 of the first book, and today I'm very happy to be joined again by my dear friend and colleague, Sripad Jayananda Das, Dr. Janne Kontala from Finland and from my own hometown. So we're practically sitting in rooms next to each other. Welcome, Jayananda.
Thank you very much, Bhrigupada.
So we've reached a dramatic chapter, a very emotional chapter, which Prabhupada calls the disappearance of Lord Krishna. Even though we're not going to hear about Krishna's disappearance just yet, but I'm sure once we've gone through this chapter, we'll understand why Prabhupada calls the chapter like that. But in order to get our discussion going, would you mind, Prabhu, to summarize the chapter for us?
I can try. So, in the beginning, we hear from Suta Goswami that Arjuna went to Dvaraka to see Krishna. And then he's apparently absent for several months. And then his brother Yudhishthira, sitting on the throne, is getting increasingly concerned. Why is he not coming back? What's going on? And that brings us into an interesting sub-theme of this chapter, which is Yudhishthira perceiving various omens, bad omens. Some of the omens are environmental, like weather is not what one would wish it to be, not according to the season. Then he says bad omens in terms of human interactions. Seems like there's friction all over the place, while previously there was not that much, if at all. Then he's seeing some personal omens, like shivering of some part of the body, and animals are behaving in an unusual way in his presence. He's taking this up with his brother Bhima, and then he's already expressing a doubt that, okay, maybe all this indicates that Krishna is either leaving the world or has already left the world. And when they are having this conversation, then Arjuna appears on the scene. And Arjuna looks devastated. And then we enter a second, what I consider a sub-theme of this chapter, which is Yudhishthira addressing Arjuna. And he very tactfully and carefully navigates forward. Seems like he's trying almost anything in order not to directly ask, is it the case that Krishna actually left the world? So he's kind of asking all the other possible and almost like even impossible questions about, did you meet this person and did you meet that person and how are they doing and how is Lord Krishna doing, and you look devastated, and in the end he then, or is it the case that Lord Krishna has left the world? And that's with this dramatic question the chapter ends. So that's it.
Thank you. That's an excellent summary, and I really think that you managed nicely to capture the drama of this chapter. I feel this is one of the most touching chapters of the first canto, and I thought you described very beautifully how Yudhishthira, he knows what's happened.
Yeah.
But sometimes we people are like that. We know what the problem is, but we would so much prefer something else to be the problem. So we're kind of hoping for that, and then kind of, maybe I could fix this car with some gum, or maybe the problem in our relationship is that she doesn't have enough lipstick, or we're kind of going for the things that we know are not the real solutions, just because we're scared of the real thing. And this we can see here so nicely.
Well, that's one part of it, but I was also thinking that another part of it is just part of human experience and even spiritual experience. So what I find really fascinating and dramatic in this chapter, everyone who is being mentioned, who is being introduced, there is Suta, and there is Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjuna. All of them are considered like elite class, pure devotees, like on the highest level of spiritual realization, and still they are behaving in this way. And so kind of you get really the feeling that normal people would behave like this, but at the same time they are normal, and at the same time they are the most elevated ones. This is not the only place in Bhagavatam where this kind of human side of Bhakti is being introduced, but this is definitely one of those places, and it's like really interesting how Bhagavatam does not really save the words. There's one whole chapter, and apparently not so much is going on. I mean, the dramatic elements, you could present them with 3 bullet points maybe, but that's not the point. The point is all of this dramatic experience and perfection of bhakti includes everything, including drama. It's not that once a person achieves perfection, then the person is just sitting on a cloud and looking happy, and that's it. It's like the whole spectrum of experiences there. What I think is difficult to grasp, this is the first canto, so somebody picking up Bhagavatam for the very first time might really not be easy to understand that whatever is going on, while there's sadness, there's separation, at the same time there's also this kind of feeling of fulfillment due to being intensely separated from Krishna, and then paradoxically that brings the devotees' hearts close to him at the same time. So it's a kind of spiritual ecstasy disguised as a dramatic separation. Well, it's not a disguise, but like I don't know how to express it better for somebody who is unfamiliar with the world of bhakti experience.
Yeah, and I mean, this theme of love in separation is such a powerful theme here in the Srimad Bhagavatam in general, and we've been able to see it here in the chapters of the first book as well, how Krishna is leaving, but then he's coming also. He's leaving, he's coming back, he's traveling between Hastinapura, Indraprastha, and Dvaraka. He's going back and forth here in the first canto many times. And now, of course, from a small separation, Yudhishthira is now plunging into this total separation of Krishna having left this world. And he's kind of standing on the brink. He knows that this is in front of him, but he's still hoping that maybe it hasn't happened yet. And as you say, of course, the mystery of bhakti is that this separation can actually lead to an even more powerful union then in the end. But you brought up many other important points here in this chapter. One thing I wanted to discuss with you is these you call them like symptoms of or bad signs or bad omens or something like that. how are we to view all of this? Because much of this seems like kind of superstitions. Like
Yeah,
there's some like the kind of classic Western European superstitions as well. Like if there's some fogginess around the sun, that's going to lead to this or that. It
yeah.
sounds kind of the same as that.
Okay, so uh, there are various kinds of omens uh, which are being listed. All of them collectively seem to influence Yudhishthira that he's, even though he's hoping against hope, that it's not indicating what it's actually indicating. Uh, but I was thinking exactly in those terms that I think without knowing whether there is something like omens in all cultures, because I think it would be a little bit hyperbolic to say, yeah, of course, without investigating all of them, but it seems at least safe to assume that all over the world people are sensitive to these kinds of things. And so, how much of that is then culturally established? That you learn, you grow up into a particular culture which has a particular way of reading signs, and in some other culture people would read the same signs either differently or would not pay attention at all. So how much is like that, and how much is just by being a human being you would be inclined to read the signs in the same way? So I was thinking, at least, like, suppose your body suddenly starts shivering. I mean, of course, shivering could be mild or extensive. At least if it gets extensive, I think anyone would get concerned. So I don't think that's strange to get concerned about that. What if at the same time there are strange weather phenomena, and then it's like she-jackal is vomiting fire? I mean, I've never seen anyone vomit fire as far as I can remember. Actually, once I was a kid, and it was a holiday trip together with my parents, and there was in the hotel lobby there was a performance, and somebody was actually doing the vomit the fire thing, where you actually first swallow some flammable, I don't know what it is, alcohol like, and then you it's like a dragon. But that said, I think that's the only time I ever seen that. So it's highly unusual, and animals would not do that in order to get paid. So if if you have a she-jackal doing that, then I think most people in most places would see that as highly unusual and not as a good sign. So I try to take a look at, like, what do we know? Like, let's put on the, like, slightly more boring academic hat, and what is known in terms of anthropology of omens. And so there are some general features related to omens all over the world, it seems. So if something is rare, then that tends to catch the attention. If something is difficult to explain, like out of ordinary, and could also be slightly threatening or slightly auspicious, these things are kind of recognized all over the world, whether it's the same sign or some other sign, but at least as a general way of reading omens, this seems to be like all over the place. And what is being mentioned, examples found worldwide, is unusual animal behavior, which is one of the omens that Yudhishthira is actually mentioning. I think one of the things was the jackal, but the other one was that cow was passing him on the wrong side, like not as he. We have black cats and that sort of thing, but like animal behavior when it's unusual, that seems to be like not culturally specific. People all over the world tend to be attentive to that sort of thing. Then celestial events like comets, eclipses, meteors are recognized as omens and oftentimes bad omens all over the world. So this is taking place here. Weather anomalies are interpreted as omens all over the world, and that's taking place here. Then you want me to continue on this?
Yes, I find this interesting.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so something more, like if one is suddenly encountering unusual amount of darkness or heights, like a high place, strange sounds, cues for illness, which I would take the throbbing of some part of the body would potentially be a sign of illness, even though not necessarily in this case, but something like that. And again, particular animals, so in Finnish culture, black cats, and yeah. Then we have something like really unusual things. An example would be like seeing a two-headed snake. So I think like a jackal vomiting fire falls into this category. Then an animal who appears in an impossible location. In other words, the animal is normal and location is normal, but the combination of the two is not. I suppose fish flying in the sky, or I don't know, like land animals appearing in a lake. I don't know what that could be, but that tends to be like universally recognized as an unusual omen. If the color of the sun is unusual, well, something like that is being here described. Like the atmosphere is really unusual. And then also dreams. Everyone sees dreams, but if they are unusually vivid, they are usually recognized as omens. So my own tentative reading is that we can take the whole list and single out each omen and superstition, culturally specific, all that. But I'm not at all sure what would happen if any person, like the most skeptical person, you take 10 super skeptical person and 10 super superstitious person, and you place them into those circumstances, and then you start measuring the pulse and stuff like that. I would not be surprised if it turned out that both like superstitious people and skeptical people would show signs of getting concerned in circumstances that are being described. I mean, if you single out one or two, you can raise the point, but this is a real collection of like bad signs. I'm sure if I was in that situation, I would get concerned without necessarily knowing why.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and a good point that you're making. One of my favorite authors, one Swedish historian, he used to say that you can be very much scared of ghosts without actually believing in ghosts.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So it's perhaps something similar, that when all of these things are happening, then they will create some kind of impression.
Yeah.
There's one detail here that I wanted to ask you in particular about, because you, of course, you're a scholar of within the study of religions, but you're also a yoga teacher and a yoga practitioner with many years of experience. There's something here that that made me think of some yogic texts, later yogic texts, and that's this throbbing of the body. Here we hear that when a man feels this kind of throbbing, maybe in the eye or in the somewhere in the body, in the left side of the body, then that's a bad sign. Elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in Prabhupada's purports, we hear that for a lady, for a woman, it's the opposite.
It's the other way around.
Yes. So, but also that if a man feels this kind of throbbing in the right side of his body, that's a good sign. and for a woman than vice versa. I was thinking, does this have anything to do with this idea of which side of the body that the breath is moving through? I remember reading in a book many years ago how the yogis at the Bihar school of yoga in Swami Satyananda's ashram, how they had experimented with this. Maybe you remember that book, and tried to find out, like, when are you more energetic, when is it good to do this and that, depending on which side of your nose the breath is moving. So is there a connection between that and this idea of left and right side of the body, do you think?
I don't think so. It's not my expertise, but the thing is that it's not gender specific. It's oscillating between the nadis. So it's Ida and Pingala, but it's something like every 90 minutes it switches to the other side. And the point of doing alternate nostril breathing is never mind which side is emphasized. It will balance it out. Doesn't matter where you start. Just doing it long enough, then it will come to the center. So it's not gender specific. It's kind of going back and forth throughout the day. So that would not explain why it would always be the same side for men and for women. There might be some related explanation, but I don't know.
So Ida and Pingala are not associated with male and female then?
They are.
They are.
But everyone has both.
Yeah, of course. But I was thinking, okay. Anyway, it was worth a shot.
or you like one is more dominant for a particular person than the other one?
No, I was thinking that is it like some. I was thinking something on the lines of that if one nadi is more active in a male body, or if the opposite nadi is more active in the woman's body, does that have some effects, kind of vice versa, like this? Like, let's say, I'm just giving as an example, if a man is more active in the Ida nadi, should he do this at that time, or is it with a woman that she should do the same thing when Pingala is active?
Yeah, okay, I see. Short answer, I have no idea.
Okay, but it was worth a try.
Yeah.
I mean, it may sound to the listeners that we're just blabbing here, but of course, the point of this discussion is that these ideas of left and right, of complementary kind of sides in the body, they're all parts of a larger kind of pan-yogic view of the body as being so much more than just a lump of flesh. Many things going on within the body that you can't really see with your eyes or under a microscope.
Yeah, and with Tantra and Hatha Yoga particularly, it becomes a whole alchemical project. Like, let's figure out how to strengthen the sun and how to deal with the moon, and the nadis they are rivers. There's a whole whole mini universe in the body.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, very esoteric, and
yes.
I was just teaching a yoga program the previous weekend, and the way I introduce it today, back in the day I might have done it differently, but today how I introduce the Hatha Yoga map to the human body is I'm usually say I don't think it makes even sense to think whether this particular map to our psychophysical system is true or false. It's simply irrelevant unless you practice Hatha Yoga. But if you practice Hatha Yoga, you will notice that it's highly relevant. It's specifically the locations in the microcosmic map of the body are possible to experientially, like you can access them, you can manipulate them. It's doable, but it absolutely makes no sense unless somebody is a practitioner of Hatha Yoga.
Yeah, and of course, somebody might think that why are they speaking about Hatha Yoga and Tantra and stuff like that? But actually, perhaps the first description of the so-called chakras or internal discs or lotuses is found in which book?
I thought you have a theory. Earliest that I can think of right away is actually Yoga Sutra mentions chakra. Is there some... But then you go back to Chandogya Upanishad, like that's 1,000 years before, which seems to be describing the same kind of thing without necessarily using the same words. How about that?
That's amazing. And when we get to the second canto here in the Bhagavatam, we'll hear about all of this as well. So I think.
So what's your academic historical earliest chakra nadi mentioning shows?
I don't know, but I do know that it's here in the Bhagavatam. So this is certainly a quite early source for all of this. Whether it's the first, I don't know. But let's go on a little bit with the text. We hear many other quite dramatic examples of these kind of omens.
Yeah.
About the deities crying in the temples.
I mean, that's so dramatic. I thought of like the other omens are actually something which anyone could probably relate to in some ways, but that was really special. That's definitely not the secular humanistic omen.
So Arjuna, he comes back then. Yudhishthira sees all of these things. And as you say, Yudhishthira then starts to ask him what's happened. He says, or the text says that when Arjuna bowed at his feet, King Yudhishthira saw that his dejection was unprecedented. His head was down and tears glided from his lotus eyes. So he starts asking about Arjuna's experiences, and of course, him having come back from Dvaraka, he's asking about everybody there. How is Vasudeva? How are his brothers? Devaki, Ugrasena, Akrura, Balarama, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and so on. So he's mentioning all these different names. Before then he mentions Krishna, I think in verse 34. And then he starts to ask what's wrong. And I find this quite interesting that he sees that something is obviously wrong with Arjuna, but still he first asks, how are everybody there in Dvaraka? And is your feeling, Jayananda, that he's again asking like this because he knows something is wrong there? Or why do you think he begins like this?
Yeah, I thought of one thing, like, okay, beginning teaching, this will be looks like a sidetrack, but I will address your point. So when somebody begins a lecture, then it's customary to recite invocations, prayers, mantras before going to the topic. And Krishnamacharya's son, Desikachar, actually addressed this once, because his father, who was like a great yogi, but also Sri Vaishnava, why would he do that every time, spending 5 or 10 minutes just reciting Sanskrit prayers and stuff? But then it's kind of, then you are ready. You're kind of moving from one space to another space. You're approaching a situation where spiritual discussion is going to take place, and it doesn't work if you just jump into the topic. Like 1 minute ago you were stressfully discussing with somebody on a mobile phone, and then the next moment, like reciting verses from Bhagavad Gita. It takes time to move from one kind of mental setup into another. So this kind of gradual transformation, sometimes if it takes place within 5 or 10 minutes, is actually really fast if you want to kind of totally move from one mindset to another, if you will. So it seems to me like Yudhishthira is doing something similar. From the beginning of the chapter, he's suspecting that Krishna left. But it's too much experientially for him and for everyone to just, oh, Arjuna, you came. Did Krishna leave? It's too much to just start with that, even though that's on his mind. That's on everyone's mind. That's obviously on Arjuna's mind as well, because he knows it. But still, even for Arjuna, it would be, that's my feeling, it would be too much to start the conversation like that. They kind of have to build it up somehow. And I get the feeling that Yudhishthira is doing that very skillfully, actually. He's like, you said in the beginning that he's kind of afraid to ask the real thing, but I think the other side of it is he's planning to gradually approach that topic, but not just, jump start, but gradually, carefully, with full consideration of everyone's feelings. I don't know who is in the room, at least Bhima and Yudhishthira and Arjuna, but it would be easy to imagine some other people are there as well, and everyone must be really concerned at this point.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a beautiful explanation. This is something that I very much like when devotees discuss texts such as the Srimad Bhagavata or the Bhagavad Gita, when they manage to bring out both the kind of philosophy, but also the emotions of the text.
Yeah.
Like my Guru Maharaj, his translation commentary of the Bhagavad Gita is called the Bhagavad Gita, it's feeling and philosophy.
And in this particular order.
Yes. And here, of course, we have a chapter where feeling is very much kind of on the top. There's not that much philosophy here. We have other chapters where the proportions are very much opposite. But nevertheless, both will always be present. And we do find the philosophy here as well. When Yudhishthira is when he finally comes to Krishna in the 34th verse, he says he's asking about Krishna, but he's also saying that he's Brahmanya, he's Bhaktavatsala, he is the god of the Brahmins. He's also the one who is affectionate to his devotees. He's Govinda, and so on. So the philosophy is never absent in the Bhagavata, even in the very much kind of action chapters, but also in these more emotional chapters.
Yeah.
This is something I like very much here.
Yeah, same thing. It seems like in this particular chapter, definitely like emotions are on the foreground. But I mean, in Bhagavatam, if you could cut out all the philosophy and still get a very interesting book, but then it would be, I think, probably too easy to take it as some kind of mundane narration about, yeah, human relationships, drama, without realizing that is actually describing the post-liberated experience.
Yeah. And of course, in the Bhagavatam, in this chapter, we don't. It's an uncommon chapter in the sense that there's nobody is praising anybody. The Bhagavatam, of course, is full of hymns, and these hymns are extremely important for understanding the philosophy of the Bhagavatam.
Yes.
There's this scholar, I think he's from Switzerland, Peter Schreiner, who's been working on the Vishnu Purana extensively, and I just recently read a chapter of his where he analyzed the hymns of the Vishnu Purana to find out its theology around Vishnu through the hymns, like focusing on them alone. It was a very interesting chapter, and made me think it would be quite interesting if somebody did that with the Bhagavatam as well. He had used kind of quantitative methods as well to see which words are particularly emphasized and so on. So anyway, there's the philosophy here as well, and one thing that is quite interesting here towards the end of the chapter is when Yudhishthira is finally asked about everybody, then he starts to ask my brother Arjuna, what's wrong? And he begins by asking whether his health is okay. But then he starts kind of offering these other guesses, what else could be wrong. And some of these are quite interesting, I find.
Almost like insinuations, like maybe you failed to do something which you were supposed to do. What caught your attention?
Well, I thought it was interesting that they are so much focused on Arjuna as the kind of perfect kshatriya, that they're all linked with his dharma. So Yudhishthira, he's first asking that how are you physically? But then he's asking how are you kind of mentally, in the sense of maybe you've done something which is against your dharma.
Yeah. Could you not give charity? That's part of the dharma.
Yeah.
Could you not keep your promise? And then about, did you fail to protect those you were supposed to protect?
Yeah.
I find this like, have you not taken care of old men and boys who deserve to dine with you? Have you left them and taken your meals alone? I've seen this before. It's like eating one's meals alone seems to be like the worst of the worst of deviations.
Yes. I
don't know what that tells about the fast food culture, where you just quickly, eat something in between two events without having time to, share it with anyone. And here's like such a big deal, sharing meals with others and always making sure whatever you are eating, is anyone else interested in that? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just earlier today, I was reading in the Hari Bhakti Vilasa. There's a very fun section at the end of the 11th chapter which deals with kind of all kinds of rules. It's like high and low, it's called. So it's all kind of rules collected in one place.
Yeah.
And there's several things dealing with eating in the sense of the kind of social aspect of eating. Like it says that the householders should first serve married women, then married women that are pregnant, then elderly people, then children, and finally himself. And there's another verse which says that a person who doesn't serve the animals of the household before himself, I don't remember what happens, but something terrible, I'm sure. So this idea of, which is, of course is quite common in today's culture, that everybody kind of eats their own food in their own room.
Yeah.
Like that's
instead of
far away
feeding
from
animals, people eat animals.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's a
Had
terrible
to throw
thing, of
that
course.
in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. There's also here in verse 42, have you contacted a woman of impeachable character, or have you not properly treated a deserving woman? Again, kind of in relation to this kind of kshatriya codes. And then at the end, of course, he says, or is it that you're feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I can think of no other reason for you becoming so dejected. So in this way, we can finally then get to Krishna's disappearance from the world.
Yeah. There's something which I find fascinating, because the reason for discussing this is obviously because it's connected to Krishna, so it will elevate everyone who is hearing this or reading this. But it's so interesting, like in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna himself addresses the value of hearing about him, he's specifically saying appearance and activities, but he is not mentioning disappearance. But by default, like if you are doing that time after time after time, disappearance has to be there, but it's not mentioned, even though it's part of the constellation, because that's a kind of activity, vanishing act, if you will. So it's part of it, but at the same time, this is not what the devotees are eagerly waiting to hear, or can we finally hear when the Lord disappears. It's too much, even though it's part of it, and I think that's why Bhagavatam is mentioning it. But we can really see how the people who understand the value of having an intimate relationship, like the greatest of devotees, how they respond to the news that the Lord has disappeared. They are devastated, and it's easy to understand why, like to get started with one spiritual practice and even nourished along the way, this is probably not highest on the list of priorities of the devotees. Still, nevertheless, it's part of it. It's here in the 11th canto. It comes up every now and then, and I don't really know how to deal with that. It is very sad, dramatic, but I think at the same time, if it was not there, it was kind of, yeah, and then just move on. Hey, wait a minute, what happened? How did this kind of pastime, how did the Lord finish his pastimes? It would be like, then you go through all the other Puranas, there has to be an answer somewhere, so better to give it here.
Yeah, and I mean this the very theme of leaving is it's such a powerful and important theme here throughout the first book, the first canto. Narada leaving home, the Lord leaving him, first giving him his darshan and then just leaving and saying, "You're not going to see me again for the rest of your life."
Yeah.
Shukadev leaving home. I'm sure you recognize the verse I began with. Shukadev is not in this chapter, but somehow I was inspired to say that verse, maybe because of this very theme of leaving.
Yeah.
Yam pravrajanta manupetam apeta krityam. The one who just goes away without even having received any reformatory ceremonies. Putreti tanmayataya taravo binedus. The Vyasa is just calling out, "My son!" And the only reply is the echo from the trees.
Echo is there, and that's
So
yeah.
this theme of leaving is so important here in the first book. And it's, as you say, it's kind of strange that Krishna is leaving in the beginning of the book. And then, of course, we'll come back to Krishna's story by and by in the 9th and then in particularly in the 10th canto, of course. But already here we are introduced to his leaving, just to kind of, perhaps I'm sure for many reasons, but one, of course, is to intensify our feeling of really longing for him.
Yeah.
And this longing is then supposed to work on our hearts and make us see him everywhere.
Yeah. It's bitter, sweet. So one of the themes of Bhagavatam also is kind of general Jnana Yoga theme, like nothing is permanent, we have to leave everything behind. The powerful waves of time will bring people together like the straws and then separating them, and that comes up, kind of comes up here as well. But here the message is not, therefore don't be attached. It's the other way around. Therefore this is taking place to make everyone even more attached to Krishna.
I think that's a nice way to end this discussion. This Bhagavatam is trying to make everyone more attached to Krishna. I'm at least more and more attached to discussing the Bhagavatam with you, Jayananda. So I hope that you will return to this podcast many times in the future.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a rare opportunity actually to just sit down and discuss Bhagavatam. Thank you.
Thank you.